All right, great. So welcome everyone to the Leopard Solutions Women Leaving Law webinar, where we're going to talk about the results of the survey that Leopard recently did. I'm so excited to be here. We've been working on this survey for months now, and Laura has some amazing information that I think will be really insightful, not super surprising, but I think very helpful and useful. And I'm excited about our panelists here that will be discussing the results with us. So I'd like you guys to just let me know with a thumbs up. Mary, Laura, can you, and Chrissy, can you guys see my slides? And I'm just going to go to the slideshow. Yeah. All right. So here's where we are. I am going to encourage you to follow Leopard on LinkedIn. We post a ton of great thought leadership content every day. And you can also follow us on pretty much every other social media network that is in existence as well, but LinkedIn is probably the best place to follow us. And I'll put links to all of this in the chat in a minute. We just scheduled our next webinar, which is going to be on July 12th at 1 p.m. And it's a conversation on mid-sized law firms and how they can use CI and data to their advantage. And there's information here for everybody. So whether you're at a big firm, small firm, mid-sized firm, we'll be focused on mid-sized firms. Laura and I are both speaking at the ARC Mid-Sized Law Firm Summit. So this is going to be a presentation that Laura's doing there, which is in 2 weeks in Chicago. Wish us luck that we don't get stuck trying to get to Chicago or back home, because the flights have been pretty bad, I think, in general. And lots of people, I think, are having nightmares flying lately. And we're obviously going to talk about this disparity between men and women, and just women in general, and what's going on in the legal industry. But I want to take us back. And so this photo was taken approximately like March 2020. And this was right before the pandemic. This is just what life was like before we adapted, before the legal industry pivoted. Yeah, I knew it might make some of you chuckle, but I don't know about you guys, but the world has changed so much. 3 years ago, I was in-house at a law firm working every single day in an office where FaceTime was incredibly important, where my performance was judged on how often I was in the office. And today I have my own business where I work for law firms and I work from home and I travel to my clients like Leopard, and I do lots of really interesting things. And we have shown that we can still be incredibly efficient and carve new paths and be effective at what we do. And we are innovating, and this industry has been forced to innovate over the last couple of years. And you're going to see a lot of that when Laura speaks, but I can't remember what life was like 2 years ago. And the more law firms talk about going back to the way things were or back to normal, it makes me cringe, because I don't even know what that means anymore, particularly for women who have said, we're not going to do that anymore. We want something different. And the next generation, I'm an Xer, but millennials and the Zs, I think that's after millennials, they're saying they want something different, and law firms have to listen. In an industry where we do things just because, quote, that's the way we've always done things. I mean, how many of you have heard that before at a law firm? We've got to continue to force innovate. So maybe some of you can relate to this. It wasn't that long ago that some of us had BlackBerries at law firms. So there's been this whole idea of a she session, and Laura's going to talk about, it's actually not as astounding as you think, but there's just some nuances here. So I'm excited for Laura to present. And I'm not going to go into all these headlines, but you know that this is happening. We did a webinar last year where we talked about how women are missing from the top ranks of partner. And even though they're in almost unison with regard to going to law school and graduating and going into firms, there's a disparity here. And there's a lot of reasons why. And we did a webinar last month with law school deans about the new generation of law students entering big law firms. And we were talking about this new normal and how, summer classes and new associate classes maybe at a little bit of a disadvantage in terms of mentoring programs and networking. And just the conversations on the fly in the hallways that we all had for years working in law firms that they're not having working remotely. So they're, maybe a hybrid is the best way, or there's something new, but they won't know what it was like because they're in this new normal. I heard from a friend over the weekend who's a partner at a top 10 law firm who said to me that his firm is requiring them to be in the office this summer much more because they need to show the summers that they're in the office. So I thought that was another interesting, and there's a financial perk associated with that if they're in the office. Another interesting tidbit that I found out this weekend. So we know all of this. I'm not going to go into all of these data points, but women are not making partner. They're leaving. It's difficult. And we're going to talk about why they're leaving their jobs. I want to stress also that this isn't just women lawyers. I'm not a lawyer. I've been in legal marketing for 20 years, working at some of the top law firms, and people who do what I do are also leaving in droves. Law firm talent is very hard to keep right now, and they're being ported away. So it's every single person, from partners to associates to your marketing directors to your HR directors. You've got to worry about talent everywhere being poached away, and not just from another firm to another industry completely. Okay, so now I'd like to ask our speakers to do a brief introduction about themselves. One of our speakers, Molly, is not able to join us. Her dog has an emergency, so we're very dog friendly here, and we just hope her dog is okay. But you'll see her insights are incorporated within the presentation, as she did speak with Laura beforehand. Okay, so just starting with me, simply because I'm talking, my name is Stephanie Marone. I am now a law firm outsourced CMO because guess what? I saw a need for a business that didn't exist. So now I work with law firms and legal service providers, and I go in and I do part-time work for them. And I also do consulting work on social media. And I was in-house at Proskauer and Sullivan and Cromwell, Mayer Brown, Paul Weiss, and a lot of other firms for 20 years, and decided I didn't want to go back full-time in one law firm if it meant I had to be in the office every single day. So there's a lot of people like me who are still in the legal industry, but doing things our way and differently. And I never expected to do this, nor did I ever want to be an entrepreneur, and I still don't bill very well. So if you have any suggestions for me, that would be great. Okay, so Christy, tell us about you.
Thank you, Stephanie. I am Christy Tosh Kreider. I am at Baker Donaldson. We are a law firm that has offices across the Southeast, also Baltimore and DC. I chair our healthcare litigation group. I sit on our board of directors. I've spent my entire career, 25 years, at the same law firm, so I will be bringing that perspective to the table. And I think the reason that I was invited to be a part of this, and I'm so honored to get to be a part of it, is because I chair our firm's Women's Initiative, which is my favorite job.
Yeah, I'm so excited. Laura shared with us some of the things you guys spoke about, and I'm really excited to hear about how you're making that work at your firm, Christy. So it's going to be great to hear your insights in a little bit. And so, like I mentioned, Molly wasn't able to join us, but you'll hear her insights, and she's co-hiring partner for the DC office of Gibson Dunn. And now I'm going to ask Mary to tell us about herself.
Thank you so much, Stephanie and Laura, for having me here today. This is definitely a topic which speaks to me personally and professionally in my role. I am with Mistel & Company. Mistel is a national legal recruiting company. We're located in offices across the country. Personally, my background is I started out as a practicing attorney in Boston as a litigator. About 14 years ago, I left the practice of law myself and AmLaw 200 firm and shifted over to legal recruiting, joining Mistel. Since then, I've been working with partners, groups, and attorneys of all levels in the Boston market and across the country. And I have a second hat in managing our national team of legal recruiters.
Awesome. Thank you.
Yes.
All right. And then Laura, I'm going to pass it to you, and then Laura's going to take it away for us. So Laura.
Sure. Hi, everyone. I'm Laura Leopard. I'm the CEO of Leopard Solutions. I've been doing this for almost 20 years. The little house on the prairie photo reminded me of what the world was like when we started our business. At that time, law firms had just gone online, if you can even imagine that. So the world has changed considerably since we have been around, but it's been a very interesting ride. And I'm so happy to have talked with Christy and Molly and Linda and all the people that we talked with in order to put this program together. And I hope that somewhere it might make a spark so we can actually move that needle in the right direction.
Yeah, I'm so excited. I remember, I'm just gonna, Laura, stop sharing so you can share and put some links in here. I remember when we first started talking about this project, it was in January, and we said, gosh, we've got it. We were doing research for our year in review paper, and we were looking at the numbers, and we said, wow, there's something here, and we really wanted to report on it. And so I'm excited that we were able to be part of this. So guys, while you're doing this, put questions. I should mention that in the chat or the Q&A. You can message me directly if you want to. And I'm going to put some links in here to connect with all of us on LinkedIn and that sort of thing.
All right. Well, here we go. As Stephanie mentioned a moment ago, we sort of began this journey when we looked at all of the numbers when we did our year-end roundup, at the end of 2021. And what we saw, we had two different slides. One was the gender diverse exits, and the other was the ethnically diverse exits. Like, where did they go after they left, a top 200 firm? And what we saw, that there was a divide of about 7% between the gender diverse exits and the ethnically diverse exits. So 7% less women rejoined a top 200 firm. And that was also a concerning number. There was 2,509 women where we didn't know where they went, but we knew that they hadn't re-entered a top 200 firm. They didn't re-enter one of our 4,000 firms that we cover. They didn't enter one of the 8,000 companies that we cover in our in-house program. We just didn't know where they were. So we wanted to, do some research, and we wanted to see where they went. We wanted to know if they'd left the law, if they're just doing something different. So we just began a long research project to find that out. And we were able to whittle that number down to about 1,000. I also think that some of them, and a couple hundred more, I think, had joined a top 200 firm. They were taking their time, maybe letting the world know where they had ended up, or they'd taken their time taking a new position. But there was still a good number of unknowns, and we wanted to try to reach out to women who had left the law and to ask them the question, why? Why did they leave? So we started our survey a few months ago, and here's just sort of an overview of the top line of the results. We had about 187 respondents. The highest numbers came from California, Illinois, New York, and Pennsylvania, Texas, DC, and there were a couple international locations that responded. Only 13% of the people that responded relocated during the pandemic. So that wasn't it. 61% remained at a law firm, but they weren't in big law. 8% had become a non-practitioner business executive. 6% were not working. 9% went into a corporate legal practice. 4% had started their own solo practitioner practice. 3% had gone into government, and 1% into academia. Now, these are just the respondents of the survey. The data from our database is a bit different. So when they left, these people that answered the survey, 59% of them were associates, 22 were partners, and 15% were counsels. 75% of those who had left law firms said it was highly unlikely they would return to one. So just to give a sort of overview, the age range of the people that took this survey, the biggest age range was 35 to 44. We also ask the question, how many children do you have? Because that's been the knee-jerk reaction, right, to the whole pandemic situation. Oh, women that have kids, it's so hard for them, they left the law. Well, that was a large group of these people that did not have children. So that did not apply to them at all. Then we ask them, what are your biggest frustrations in working at a law firm? So let's pay very closely to these colors. So the aqua blue is very frustrated. A yellow is somewhat frustrated. So they are very frustrated because they were not feeling supported at their firm. Very high level of frustration there. Work-life balance. Very frustrated by the work-life balance that they were presented. There was also a high number in both of those of that somewhat frustrated. Then we said, at the beginning of your career, how important was it to you at making partner at your law firm? And for the group with the orange, extremely important. For the group in the yellow, about 34%, very important. So we know that 59% of these people that left as associates, they didn't make partner, but to a lot of these folks at one point in their career, it was very important to them to make partner. How impactful would the following factors be in motivating you to return to a law firm? Wow, okay. Better, more supportive culture, ding, ding, ding. More flexible work environment, ability to work from home 100% of the time. And for more opportunities for advancement, you sort of got the yin and the yang. Some people didn't think that would be a motivating factor. Some people did. Better pay, better benefits, the same sort of divide there. But better, more supportive culture, more flexible work environment, the ability to work from home 100% of the time. Those would be motivating to them to return to a law firm. Now here, let's focus on the purple because these answers are very impactful. So how much of an impact in leaving your law firm did the following factors have? Current job satisfaction, very impactful. They were not satisfied with their job. They were not satisfied with what they were doing. The lack of flexibility, big graph there. Work-life balance. By this time, this should not be a surprise, right? This is really at the crux of the problem. So career trajectory, that also had a lot of people that said that was very impactful. Desire to make a career change, that resonated some as well. But now we're beginning to see this recurring theme here. So then we decided to look at our data to see what our data could tell us and help to measure some of this. So we looked at the promotion data. And if you look at the rates over years, you really don't see the needle moving in the right direction. If anything, the promotion rates for the women in the top 200 firms are slightly worse than they were before. So in 2019, there was a gap of 418 folks. In 2020, 474. In 2021, 477. The gap is not getting better. If anything, the gap is slightly worse. We wanted to look at laterals by gender too, and I wanted just to limit it to associates because at the moment, there is parity on the associate level. 50% of the associates in the top 200 are women. However, men have an edge in lateral recruitment. So 2020, we know that was a strange year with very few laterals hired. But if you look at 2019 and you look at 2021, the gap is actually wider in 2021 for those lateral hires. Now, we know that laterals are promoted to partner at a higher rate than those who start from an entrance level. So if you are not hiring women laterals, it just contributes to the uneven playing field that they have. Then we looked at partner laterals by gender. So yes, there are fewer women partners. Yep. But the disparity in these hiring numbers really speak for itself. It's almost kind of shocking when you look at it. They're just not looking for those those women partners. So now we went back to those associate exits, right? So we know that women represent about 50% of the associates. There's parity there. So we just kind of wanted to see if there was a different exit pattern. And men re-entered top 200 firms, about 4% more than their women colleagues. And as we saw in our year-end webinar, firms are hiring more women than men on that entry level, but not laterally. So 35.62% of women that exited a top 200 firm re-entered one. 39.35% of men who exited a top 200 firm re-entered one. And I have to say, these are both concerning numbers. These are both concerning numbers, right? So they're going into in-house, they're going to other law firms, they're going into government service, they're doing goodness knows what. But 61% of men are not going back to a top 200 firm. That is just as concerning as that lower, female number. This firm group, this top 200 firm group, is losing a significant portion of their ranks each year as associates choose another career path. Then I wanted to look at women exits by age. And this chart looked remarkably similar until we reached 2021. And the number of younger women exiting these firms jumped considerably, while the rest of the age groups, pretty much remained the same. So the age group of 25 to 30 really shot up in 2021 with their exits, which should also be concerning. Doing research for this, and just in general, I always like to read about, women and their experiences in law. And this was a really well-written article that I'd sort of had on the back burner for a while. And I thought it really distills some of these issues down beautifully. It is clear that women lawyers do not advance along the same trajectory as men. Yes, we agree, the data says so. The gender gap continues to widen even after partnership and contributes to the disproportionately high rate of attrition of senior women lawyers. Indeed, and I love this quote, women vote with their feet by leaving the practice of law. Unequal access to the experiences that are building blocks for success and gender stereotypes, implicit biases, this is causing the problem. And far more than men, simply on account of their gender, women experience demeaning comments, lack of access to business development opportunities. They have been overlooked for advancement, lack access to sponsors, and suffer other behaviors in firms that diminish their chances for reaching the same level of success as their male colleagues. Wow. This article also I found just the other day, and this article looked at 4 different industries. They looked at law, higher education, faith-based nonprofits, and healthcare. And they found that law was the most challenging environment for women. Workplace harassment, the billable hour, all of that made and so much more made the choice of law a much more challenging field for them to overcome. So as we go through this presentation, you're going to see quotes that we have pulled out that women posted on the survey. And as we looked at the survey results and all the comments that they were sharing, it was thoroughly depressing. And I knew if we were going to share these, that we had to find a balance somehow. So we interviewed women who had actually succeeded in big law, and we researched article after article on what firms can do to combat this problem. So we found 11 things that we believe can make a difference. And we also have some real life examples of how they work. Number 1, let women speak. How many women have had men talk over them, or to repeat what they just said, to claim an idea for their own. These are daily microaggressions that must be addressed by the person in charge who is in the room. If they see men interrupting, undermining, heap-eating, you know what that is. It's rewording a point that was raised by a female colleague. They must address that behavior and put an end to it. It undermines confidence and it leads to women being less vocal. What we see in practice is that this requires strategy, requires thinking and being deliberate about solving the problem, because it's not going to be solved by itself. It requires techniques and partners to work to solve the problem. Linda Bennett at Lowenstein talked about using the amplification strategy. This is a great story. So in the Obama administration, women noticed that men were speaking over women. And in some cases, they were just repeating an idea that women had voiced earlier and taking credit for it. So the women banded together to make sure that women were being heard. And when they heard a man interrupting a woman, they would stop him and they would ask him to let the woman finish making her point. They would also point out gently when a man co-opted an idea that a woman had put forward earlier in the meeting. They use that technique at Lowenstein to make sure that the women know they have a safe place to speak and be heard. So when they're sitting in that conference room and they see their sister sitting at the table with them, they know they can be heard and they're going to be supported because they have a strategy and a way to make that happen. Give women opportunities. I'm sure if you asked any law firm, they would say, we give women opportunities. Of course we do. Well, let's think about it this way. You know, how do you succeed in a law firm? You stack up those billable hours. And if women do not receive the same amount of opportunities as offered to their male colleagues, how do they win in that competition? And how are you sure that you are giving women the same sort of opportunities that the men are receiving at your firm? So for Christy Tosh Kreider at Baker Donaldson, who we'll hear from in just a little bit, it's the Women's Initiative. And they have a firm leader in every office who advocates for women to present, to be on pitch teams and more. It's really a dedicated strategy to make sure that women are included at all levels. And for Lowenstein, Elaine Hughes told us that they created a centralized assignment database where associates put in their hours, what they're working on, who they're working with, and what they would like to work on. They also measure the partners they're working with so they know who has had access to the key partners in the firm and who hasn't. It helps at assignment time so you know who has not received the same opportunities as others on staff. Number 3, give women a seat at the table. Women need to be in visible leadership positions. When women associates see women in charge of practices, they see them on the hiring committee or even as a managing partner, it shows them what is possible. And just as important, having women in leadership, they can share their concerns and perspectives, which can be really crucial at times. How can all male leadership make proper decisions for female employees without hearing what they need or what they want? The answer is they can't. And just because they're making decisions that they think are in the best interest of women, without their input, it can really blow up in their face. Number 4, don't tolerate sexism. If you don't want sexism to be a toxic substance in your firm culture, you can end it. It's a choice, but you must be deliberate and you must be persistent. Sexism should not be tolerated, both obvious and subtle, because it can kill your culture. By the way, it's the same with racism, right? And all the unconscious biases that accompany it. A firm that no longer tolerates that behavior by simply enforcing their own rules and punishing those who cross the line, they will indeed change that culture for the better. Look, attrition can kill your bottom line. And if you care about your profits, you should care about attrition because it steals millions of dollars from your profit line each year. If there is behavior at work that causes people to leave because they don't feel supported, or even worse, they don't feel safe, you are working against your primary goals. A firm must be willing to make some tough decisions to ensure that they have created a positive workplace. Number 5, uncover unconscious bias. Equality will never be a reality unless leadership recognizes that it's not currently equal. While women are no longer considered to be their husband's property, they're free to work, they can own property now, and they can vote, they're still not equal in the workplace in 2022. Men are promoted at a higher rate. Male laterals are hired at a higher rate, and men dominate the partner ranks in big law. We all hold unconscious biases. Being aware of them doesn't solve the problem, however. It really takes a strategy and consistent pressure to overcome. First, you have to realize that it's real, and only then can you work to overcome overt and unconscious biases. At Baker Donaldson, they train people who are in positions of leadership in how to best advance women and beat that unconscious bias problem. Christy says 100% of the time they welcome that training and they welcome that knowledge because they want to keep women there because they're an important part of their talent pool. Number 6, offer equal paternity care. So, while companies shouldn't intervene directly in an employee's life, they should recognize inequality where it exists and offer ways to minimize that burden. Whether it's helping women to stay connected or developing their skills while they're on maternity leave or facilitating their return to work. And offering equal paternity care is just a no-brainer. By doing that, it normalizes the leave for both men and women who need to take off time to care for a new child. And there could be less of a stigma for women taking off if men do it too. So just make it universal. Number 7, offer a flex time schedule and remote work. Remote work was not possible in most law firms until the pandemic. Women had asked for it for years, but it was just something firms were not willing to do. They just could not pass that Rubicon until they were forced to. And suddenly the impossible was possible. And men and women were both working remotely. And now it is very difficult to take that away. Women especially benefit from this practice, and firms that continue to allow remote work are going to see a big benefit with happier, still very productive attorneys and with retention. Flex time could help women balance work and life more easily as well. And by allowing both men and women to take the time off they need during a crisis or even a long-term crisis situation, or childcare at work, time off to care for a sick relative, those perks should be shared across the board, and men should be encouraged to take it as needed. Women have been asking for a flex time type of schedule for years. It would allow women to continue to work and deliver good work by balancing what they need to balance at home. And encouraging partners to take flex time when they need it will signal to associates that it's okay to take it. Flex time could allow you to keep valuable employees that you might otherwise lose. Molly Singer, who I wish was with us today from Gibson Dunn, she felt those home pressures. And she decided to go on flex time back in 2016, long before the pandemic hit. They already had a program in place. She felt comfortable taking it. And she made partner while on flex time. And she sees others reach that peak year after year who are also in that program. And my favorite quote that she gave me was the partner that she was working with in 2016 said, "I would rather have you 50% of the time than most of those associates 100% of the time." So being flexible will allow you to keep the people that you want at your firm. Number 8, acknowledge women's success. Working behind the scenes, rarely taking credit for work, never being recognized for their contribution. Do you know any men like that? Probably not, but I'm sure you know a few women in that position. We have been notoriously bad about blowing our own horn. You can read all kinds of articles about it. We were taught not to do it. It's not ladylike. So we have to help women be recognized for the good work that they do. And Linda Bennett from Lowenstein shared this. Moving the needle has to be more than words. And accountability is important now to clients. The power structure in a law firm is often who has the biggest book of business, and forcing firms to look carefully at not only who had the initial connection of the work, but who is actually doing the work today could really help. A team works on an account, not just the partner who originated the business. Looking at the work with a team approach will help. Clients are pushing for the credit to be properly attributed. In some companies, by the way, it's women who are deciding what firm they want to work with. And if they don't see the correct attribution, then it causes them to move on to another firm. So that push from clients will help move the needle in the right direction, along with firms having a commitment to make sure that people are being adequately recognized for the work that they're doing. So when McKinsey had a great article, they did an article, I think a year or two ago, and they found that when considering promotions, men are evaluated based on potential, while women are evaluated based on performance. So let's think about that for a minute, right? We know we have a group of people who aren't good at blowing their own horn. They're not standing up and saying, I did that. So if they are being judged merely on their performance and their performance is not being recognized, there is no wonder why we have this unevenness. And McKinsey said these unequal standards lead to the extremely skewed management structure that we see in most workplaces, where entry-level ranks are split 50-50, men and women, but management ranks are dominated by men. Boy, does that ring a bell. They said the number one thing companies can do to advance gender equality is to change the way that they evaluate women for promotions, ensuring that they are on a level playing field. And Christy at Baker Donaldson told us about a program they put in place to help women make equity partnership. You know, it is a big goal. They work really hard to attain it, and they support the women in the program with services. They meet with them every other month to talk about topics that are critical to earning equity ownership and discuss how to put them into practice with their own practices. They have a plan in place, and they are increasing their female equity shareholders. And that's what every firm needs to do. None of these things happen organically. Everything needs a plan. Everything needs a strategy. And then, of course, the will to do it. And according to Walking Out the Door, hiring more women laterals would also help to level that playing field. They say, given the fact that at many firms, more partners are hired laterally than they are promoted internally, it's critical that law firms ask to focus on identifying potential women lateral candidates, including searching for qualified candidates out of their existing networks. And we can see from the slide above that while the numbers for men and women associates are in a virtual dead heat, they hired more men laterals than women. And at Baker Donaldson, back to that robust women's initiative, Christy told us that the minute the firm hired their first lateral recruiting officer, she went and spoke with them and made sure they knew about all the things that the firm does to advance women. And that as a firm, they want to be ready when women vote with their feet and are ready to move to a new home. Look, all firms are not created equal. And neither are mentorship programs or women's programs. There is a difference between just checking a box because you're supposed to do something and really making it work. And the last one, mentorship. A solid mentorship program can make a huge difference in your associate's chance for success. They can help create benchmarks and celebrate wins, as well as provide consistency and structure. They are a sounding board, a cheering squad, and a rock at the firm for the mentee. The mentor might find that he or she becomes a better leader through the whole process. As Molly Singer from Baker Donaldson put it, you get to know people you otherwise would never get to know. And thankfully, there is no such thing as a stupid question. It gives the associates confidence to ask questions and to seek help without fear of being ridiculed. Not all mentorships are created equal. Assigning a mentor to check a box is not going to produce the results you want. A plan, a schedule, a structure is needed for the program to be a success. And at Baker Donaldson, they have two. One is a firm mentor program, and one is with the members of the Women's Initiative that starts the day you begin at a firm and is there until you retire. It's really a pretty inspiring program that gives women in law a place to grow, to seek answers, support, and give them a hand up when they need it. They support the program by supplying, material each month to help spawn new discussions and keep it growing and alive. So not only do they have the program, they continue to nurture it along. So these are the 11 ways that we think firms can work to level that playing field and give women a more equal opportunity. And by the way, most of these can be applied to supporting ethnically diverse hires as well. Many of their problems are incredibly similar. And let's not forget this, nearly 61% of men who leave the top 200 firms do not return to a top 200 firm. A robust mentorship program might have helped them as well. Solutions must be deliberate. They must be persistent. It has to be more than just clients requesting and demanding change. If a firm truly wants gender or ethnically diverse groups both, they really have to have the will to do something about it. It isn't just a hiring problem. It's an onboarding problem. It's a mentorship problem. It's an opportunity problem. And those issues require thought, will, and ongoing effort to correct. The world around us has changed, including law firms, and their embrace of remote work has changed much within the industry. Young people are demanding change, and attorneys are voting with their feet, and they are leaving the top 200 grind and moving into in-house or government positions. Look, the hiring continues and the churn keeps going, but at what cost? This sentence, "Why did I even want to be a partner?" should send chills down the spine of anyone in management at a law firm. Why did I even want it in the first place? It's not worth it. Folks, that's what your entire model is built upon. These young associates coming through the door, wanting to stay and make partner. So, and this is a sentiment we saw over and over again in our survey. And let's remember this. I saw this online too. This is just a calculator I found online. That's the link to it for what an associate attrition might cost a firm, or any employee attrition might cost a firm. And this is a free online version, and it will give you the cost of your employee turnover, and the results can be eye-popping. Of course, we have our own, and this is our ROI report in our Leopard BI. This is the cost of attrition at a top 200 firm. Costs hit a real high in 2018 with over $23 million in losses for recruitment because they only had a 52% success score in that year's recruitment. Just imagine adding those numbers to your profit column. There are now, and there will be more, alternatives to the traditional model. Disruptors are popping up everywhere. Ones that allow for different billing models, work from home, flex time opportunities, they are growing. And firms will need to take steps to compete for talent in a whole new environment. The pandemic changed more than most realize, and workers have found their voice. Women can be a big part of their growth in success if they are helped to succeed, allowed to succeed. It only takes the will to do it.
Okay, wow. First of all, I feel like I should clap. I mean, there were so many points. Like, I feel like that was so impassioned and like speaks to me. Okay, so we've got some people saying in here, applause and wonderful. Like Laura presented that earlier today. And it's so, I mean, having been in this industry for 20 years, like it speaks to me directly. I mentioned in the beginning, I don't know if I said this to you guys, I was saying it to Laura and Phil this morning. I was offered a job not long ago and I thought about taking it, and it's not a law firm, but they want me to be in the office 4 days a week. And I don't want to do that, nor do I think that that's essential for my success anymore. So I think that we've forced this industry to innovate, and any law firm managing partner who thinks that we need to go back to the quote unquote the way things were or the normal, there is none, guys. And we are demanding change, and not just women, it's men demanding change. It's the next generation of lawyers who want change. So we've forced this change. We're not going to go backwards. So we've got a lot here to unpack. So by the way, this webinar was scheduled to be more than an hour. If you have to leave, we understand. There's so much we could talk about this all day. We are recording this, so you will get a copy of the recording. But so stay on if you can, and if you have questions, like we're going to get into the dialogue now because I want to hear what Mary and Christy have to say. So, Christy, let's start with you. You were out, you featured in this. You are a success story. And you're paving the way by being able to have this amazing women's initiatives and group, and being able to, do things, actually having seen firsthand maybe what doesn't work. So first of all, question for you, tell us what you think about this research, Laura's findings, and then your experience and how this fits with your experience.
Well, first of all, thank you, Laura, for that compilation of really insightful information. I was soaking it in as you were presenting, and I'm excited to get a copy of it and really spend some time simmering on it. I thought there was some good news in there. I think that we have the opportunity right now, we are at an inflection point, that we have the opportunity to make our firms the kind of place that these women want to spend their careers. And we just have a choice to make. Either we are going to adapt and be the place where people who are in touch with what they want in their career and they want in their life see a path that feels successful, not a side path, a path that feels successful to them, or we're going to get passed by. And so I saw this information as a challenge to be the place that these women want to stay. And I feel like we can do that. I feel like in a big way, we have already done that, but the work is never done. My favorite woman ever said, "My work will be done when there are 9. And our work will be done when there is complete gender parity at every level. Then we will know that we've kept our talent pool. And then we will know that we are giving our clients which that is the point of all of this, is to give them the absolute best client service we can. And we can't do that if we're losing part of our talent pool because we're not adjusting.
I mean, I couldn't agree with you more. So, Mary, from your perspective, having been an attorney and now on the other side of things, seeing this, as we called it, quote, the wild, wild west, end quote, of recruiting over the last 2 years, what are your thoughts on this? You had mentioned you had some insights about the data as well.
Yes, I agree, Christy. Part of it, was I surprised at the data? There were parts of it which are obviously very eye-opening, but it almost come as a confirmation for what you might expect to come down the pipeline for numbers, and make you sad, but not necessarily surprised at what you're seeing. But I am also a glass half full person in looking at this data. What I saw from your data is that some positivity. You didn't see a high number of people leaving the practice of law and taking the path such as I did, which was to leave and go to a completely different role and said, I'm done with the law and I no longer want to practice. I've fallen out of love with practicing law. That's not what we're seeing. What we're seeing is these environmental factors, which are actually changeable. And what's great is, Laura, people like yourself are identifying and taking the time to hone in on what those pieces are, the critical factors which law firms need to identify to make those changes within their organizations to either recruit or retain their talent. And then it becomes a question, are you going to do that? You have the information, and as Christy artfully said, it's an inflection point. You now have the information in front of you. You can make a deliberate decision, an informed decision. Do you want to do that?
Yeah, I mean, I think, I thought what you said was so interesting about, it's not that we're saying we don't like the work. We're just saying that we want a different way to work, right? So that's how I feel. I mean, I love what I do. I love the industry. I've spent 20 years doing this. I just don't want to go back to the way things work just because that's the way we've always done things. And
people aren't saying drafting briefs and transactional work is not their jam anymore. They love it. They actually love the work. They want to continue to do it. It's about providing more balance and more flexibility, more engagement, providing them the tools to do the work that they love.
Yeah. How do you all think men can be allies for women in reaching their goals, whatever they are, whether it's making partner, whether it's going in-house, whether it's, becoming an entrepreneur, which advocating for an associate while at the firm? Christy, what do you think?
I think that's a fantastic question, Stephanie. And I think it's one we don't ask ourselves enough. Mm-hmm. So in the leadership of the Women's Initiative at Baker Donelson, I have about a dozen committees of the Women's Initiative. They're all each devoted to something that in a listening meeting, a woman told me she felt like she needed on a path to success, whether that is mentoring, whether that is helping her develop her book of business, alternative work arrangements, you name it, we have it. And I have two co-chairs of each of those committees. And of several of them, I have a man who is a co-chair, because promoting women is everyone's job, right? Mm-hmm. And I think that it's easy to miss that. I also try to devote as much of our training time to our leadership as I do to the women that we're trying to help get promoted, right? And so I think this is really, really delicate issue of how you approach leaders, because ask yourself, do I respond well to being approached with, you're talking over me, or you're being rude, or you're a terrible listener, or your comment was demeaning? Or do I respond better to, hey, I saw that one of your group's goals this year is to keep retention at this rate or to develop this much additional business. I'm here to talk to you about ways that I think I can help you reach your group's goals by helping you retain the women in your group. And here are a couple of ideas I had for you. And here's another idea that I thought might help you meet your group's goals. And that, in my opinion, is the way to approach leadership about helping get women promoted. By, this is good for the firm, and I know you're going to be our ally and that we can count on you for this.
Any other thoughts from Mary Laura about the male issue? I mean, we've got so many men in the industry, we might as well figure out a way to make them allies.
I think that that's important, that the leadership comes from all fronts, just, gender neutral, full stop. I think that comes from the top, but that comes also from all levels within your firm. And I think that it's important that firms and corporations consider that you can have ambassadors for this issue throughout levels, and that doesn't necessarily just have to be a managing partner or a practice group lead, but that issue can start at the first year level and throughout the firm. And if you have an issue of importance, it's really about finding ambassadors for that issue, and they will take ownership of it. And that's gender neutral. It's important to everybody.
Yeah. I mean, I get your point, Christy. What we've been saying all along is, if you care about your bottom line, you should care about attrition. And that's overall attrition. That's men and women both. I think that, and this is a bit more than just a women's conversation, but honestly, the whole partnership model is at risk with this new crop of attorneys coming in and going, we don't want that. You've already had a lot of women vote with their feet and say, we don't want that. Who wants it? The partners do at the top level. So there has to be some give. There has to be some recognition that they need to do things a little bit better. The world has changed, that kind of a thing. But if you lead with economics and say, you could have had an extra $2 million in your PPP last year, if only our recruitment had gone better and we hadn't lost so many people. So economics is a good way to push them where they need to go, along with clients nudging them in that direction as well.
Which is the impetus, I find, for many law firms saying we got to amp up diversity hiring, we have to amp up women's hiring. I mean, look at the Johnny Depp and Amber Heard trial, just to bring it back to current events. If you saw Camille Vasquez, I'm talking about Camille Vasquez from Baker,
Rudnick.
Yes. So Brown Rudnick. So she's all over the news, and I've been following their social media. It's exploding because of Camille, and she has gotten incredible visibility for this. And she is a female associate, working on this matter. And I think it was a very interesting strategic move on their part to have her be so much in the public eye on that matter. So very interesting sort of thing. So just to tie it back to current events. So let me ask each of you your thoughts on the new normal with the hybrid work environment. And I'm working from home more. I'm a junior associate. I may not be familiar with the whole, stopping by down the hallway, asking advice to someone, making those organic mentors versus what Christy has at her firm, which is amazing, but not all firms have that. What do I do to not be one of many in this big associate class, or to make the relationships? Or what if I don't know what I'm doing? I'm afraid to ask. I can't just, walk down the hall and ask an associate. I don't have these informal relationships. and I'm a woman, and I don't want to ask a man. I don't want to seem uncomfortable. Like, I don't want to seem like I don't know my stuff. What do I do in that situation? And I think this is advice for anybody. You don't just have to be a lawyer to take this advice. What do you think? So Mary, let's start with you.
So I think about, the path to partnership, first of all, I think starts on day one. Associates should think about this as starting on day one. And it's almost like a language or a fluency. When you think about it, when you learn a language if you learn it when you're in preschool and you take up French, you're just much better. It becomes natural. And I would say the same thing with your path to partnership. And a big piece of that is learning business generation and client connections. And, and I think Christy is a much better person to speak to this because she's been so successful at it. But, my experience in talking to attorneys in the market is to really view this as not something that starts at year 5 or year 6, but your day one, and kind of focusing on the 3 C's, which is really communication within your firm, and asking what are the factors that I'm going to be evaluated on, what are the things that I need to focus on, getting feedback, connection internally. So finding your mentors, finding sponsors within your firm, with whether or not that is connecting with people remotely, going to coffee within your practice group, but outside your practice group as well. And then the third is clients. So it's really about, when you think on that level, it's not just about your skill set, but it's your ability to become a value add to the partners who you're working with, but really to the clients. And if you are, then your path forward is much smoother. And I think whether you are a woman or a man, that will be a benefit to you. So those are my thoughts in speaking with people who have successfully navigated that path to partnership.
Yeah. I love that. And I still don't understand why business development and marketing, being a marketing person, it's not taught in law schools, because I think these are skills that law students need from day one. And then also law firms don't necessarily always train their junior lawyers on those things. And so then they're sort of expected to have their own books of business and bring in business, and they're working, under a lawyer, and they are really busy and they're really good at their craft, but they haven't actually been able to work on developing those skills, client alert writing, speaking engagements, talking to the clients, because they're behind the scenes doing the work. And so we have to change that and give them visibility. And
I mean, most people didn't go to law school and think to themselves, I want to go to law school to be a rainmaker, right? I want to go to bring in clients. That's not where they went. But that is something that does need to be taught. It's a skill that, like anything, it's a skill that requires development. And I think that if firms teach that more and foster that skill, potentially with female attorneys from early on in their careers, they will benefit because they will take to it, they will learn it, and then they will be generating their own business and be more likely to become partners at their firms.
Yeah, and we know that there are, success case. We know that firms are doing this. We know there's many MBA programs. We know that some firms send their folks to the Harvard Business School for different things. We just maybe need to focus more on doing it more institutionally. Christy, anything you guys are doing over at Baker Donaldson that helps the junior female lawyers? With these foundational aspects of helping them learn these things, especially in this, hybrid work environment that you want to speak about?
Well, I agree with so much of what I agree with all of what Mary just said. And there are a lot of pieces of this to unpack. One of my very early mentors said to me, your billable time, Christy, is what you are investing in your law firm. and your business development time is what you're investing in yourself. It was great advice, right? Because Mary's point is well taken. She who holds the clients holds the cards. And so we need she to be holding lots of clients. That is the easiest path to success, is to learn to develop business. And the second point is on the mentoring. I'll touch on that as well. So as to your question, Stephanie, of what we're doing to help people on the path to partnership, younger lawyers, the Women's Initiative does programming. I mean, really your first 3 years of practice, you need to act like a partner, but you got to learn to practice law. I mean, there's so much to learn your first 3 years of practice just about your craft. But at that point, you know, once you've sort of gotten your arms around your craft, there should be dedicated time each day to business development. And so we try to make it very practical. We take our lawyers in years 5 through 7 and do a mini series called Women to Income, which is income shareholder, which is very foundational things about business development. Stay in touch with your law school classmates. They're going to become your clients someday. Those things that they can act, that are actionable for them. And then the program that I'm most proud of is when I started in this position and looked at the nationwide statistics on women at Equity Partner, those were the most abysmal of all the statistics, right? We have great gender parity at associate ranks. We have decent gender parity at income shareholder rank. And at Equity, it was like 20%. It was terrible. And I looked at the Baker-Donelson statistics, and they were better than the averages, but still completely unacceptable. And so we started a program called Women to Equity, which is by application. And we keep 12 to 14 women in the class, and you stay into the class until we graduate you to equity. And we meet every other month as a group. All 12 of them or 14 have an accountability partner within the group that I assign from different offices and different practice groups, where they have a co-mentoring relationship. And then each of those pairs have a female equity shareholder that is assigned to their pair to be their female equity shareholder mentor. Mm-hmm. And all of those people are in our programming every other month. And the programming, I choose the partner in our law firm that I think is best at the skill. He or she comes and speaks to the group for about 25 minutes. Let's say it's on turning a presentation into a client, or learning how to build your team and take care of your team so you have leverage. And they get a homework assignment after the presentation. Go discuss with your accountability partner these 3 things that came up during the presentation. And do you need to modify your business plan in order to take into account the information you just received? And since we started that program, our percentages of getting women to equity shareholder have gone through the roof. And I think it's just about the intentionality of it. Mm-hmm. And it's about being methodical. It's about being methodical in a way that they can't slip off the radar, because we're going to see it if they slip off the radar, because I'm laying eyes on them every other month and I'm hearing how their business plan's going every other month. And I've got an equity shareholder that's meeting with them on the off months to talk about how it's going and if adjustments need to be made. And then guess what happens when we're in the room deciding on equity shareholders? 6, 7 really powerful equity shareholders and leadership in the room know exactly what that woman's been doing to develop her business. They know exactly what her trajectory is, because they've been intimately involved in it for the past 2-3 years. I'd say that's probably our average tenure in the program is probably 2 to 3 years before graduation. And I'm really, really proud of that. And each year after we elect our new equity shareholders, our group gets together and has a toast to the women that we graduated. You're not invited to the meetings anymore. You've got to go do your own thing now. And we send them off and wish them well.
I mean, I'm going to go to law school and apply to work at Baker Donaldson.
I think that's a great example, though. I think that's a
Yeah.
great example of a program, because what you're doing is you're creating a program which empowers your attorney. You're giving them this specific skill set. You're laying the groundwork for such important connections, but you're also, really putting them in a place. You're creating these mentor and sponsorship relationships, not just within the group, but in creating those obviously stronger relationships within the group, but also outside of the group, and creating this greater visibility for them. And that's all of the factors which really are so key and missing, as highlighted by the data that we've seen, and are key to people progressing forward, and what they really want, what people want.
And if you can provide an environment that offers like these extra perks, like professional development along the way, in addition to substantive, amazing work, you're going to keep your people. They're going to be loyal to you. And of course, paying you really well as well, and flexible work environment and all that kind of stuff. That's the new norm. That's what we want. That's what we expect. And let me do my work, client focused. Yes, everyone's your client. Got to get the work done, but within reason. Like, we don't need to be in the office if we don't need to be in the office, but sometimes it's good to be in the office as well. So I'm a huge proponent of being in the office when it makes sense. So all of these things, I guess that's like, I was going to say, I wanted us each to wrap up with like a word of advice, but I would say pivot and continue to be flexible. And to all the folks out there, men and women, who think, this whole 2 years is over and we're going to go back to the way things were. No, we're not, because we shouldn't, because we've evolved and we have we've forced innovation in this industry for in a good way, and we don't want to step backwards. So support your people, be loyal to your people, let them work where they want to work, but also recognize that there are a lot of people who don't want to make partner either. There are a lot of people who do. Christy's a great example of a success case, but support them. So put the money and time into your alumni relations program as well. I can't stress that enough. I'm sure Baker Donaldson probably has an amazing one. I've set up, I think, about 10 alumni programs at this point. You would be so well situated to invest in your alumni now, and also to use alumni perhaps as mentors as well, because there are a lot of associates you have now, or partners, who may want to go in-house or do something where, and your alums are already there. So if you can connect the dots for them and help them network, you are gold to them. So that's my word of advice. Laura, what's your nugget of advice, parting wisdom for the group?
Well, I just want to say, when I was beginning the interview process of different partners, I was so happy to talk to Christy, because everything had been so depressing, what I had been reading and looking at. And it was so great to hear of a firm that's really making important strides to make a difference. And I had great conversations with all the other women that I spoke with too. There are firms out there that are doing some really great things and have some really cool programs and have things that they are really working on to help nurture the women at their firm. It's something that probably should happen to every associate at every firm, where they feel supported and nurtured and helped along. We're trying to help, make everything a little more equitable for women. But these are something, as I said before, these are problems that the ethnically diverse attorneys, they have many of the same, problems assimilating into firms and succeeding in firms. it's just what you said. It's taking care of your people and supporting your people and watching that attrition, because attrition's a bad thing. You're hiring people when they walk in the door that you think are going to be great, they're going to stay with you long term. And when they don't, it's either because you hired the wrong people or you did something, that you're not giving them what they need to succeed. All of this, just like Christy said, is a choice by the firm. They just have to make the choice to be supportive. They have to make the choice to allow that a correct environment to exist in their culture. And I hope they make the right choice, because people will continue to vote with their feet.
I'm so inspired by you, Laura, today. Like everything you're saying is like music to my ears, having been in this industry for 20 years. So, Christy, how about you?
I would say my parting advice is listen more than you talk, listen to what your people are saying that they need. And it should not be a one size fits all program, right? We are all very different in what our goals are, in the support that we need to get there. And the second thing I would say is, my mom taught 7th grade science for like 30 years. And she had this poster in her room. You remember when you used to like laminate and hang posters on in your room? Yes. And it said, "Bloom where you are planted." And the reason I've been at the same law firm my entire career is because I think the vast majority of the time, the grass is not greener. And so be the change you want. Ask for the change you want. Make the change you want. My experience, when I had my first child, Baker Donaldson didn't have a maternity leave program, right? I could have voted with my feet and ended up in-house, and I would have missed out on this amazing, exciting, fun, fulfilling career. So when you identify something that needs to be changed, which is really an important exercise, be the change that you want. And I am a big, big believer in celebrations happen in front of everyone, and hard conversations happen very privately and only with the person and no one else, because you want to be a loyal team member. And it doesn't mean that you don't address behavior systems that need to be changed. You do. But I think it's very important to do it in a way that is going to be responded to with the action that you want, which is change. That's my parting advice.
Sorry, I'm muted. There's a little construction going on. So if you hear hammering, that's what's happening. I love that. Be the change you want. And it speaks to me also, Christy, like having kind of created like a new, business for myself, and something I didn't even know that I ever wanted to do or could do. You can. And so it's inspiring, by the way, to see that you're at a firm that has supported you through many different phases of your life. And as you've become a mother, and as you become a partner, and now as you're now mentoring, the younger generation, so it's great. It's a great success story. So it's nice to not switch firms, because sometimes, a lot of people I know have moved jobs during the pandemic and moved cities. And I say to them, you're taking sometimes the same problems and you're just moving them somewhere else.
And Stephanie, I'm so proud of you for starting your own business. That's so brave and inspiring to me to see you.
Thank you. And you know what I tell people too, Chrissy? I wouldn't be able to do it if it hadn't been for LinkedIn and speaking and writing and doing all of these scary things that I know a lot of lawyers and a lot of people on this webinar probably aren't doing because they're busy or they're a little nervous about doing it. So my other parting advice would be build your personal brand long before you ever think you need it, because you're laying the groundwork for whatever it is in the future. And LinkedIn can be much more than a resume, which is to Mary, because it's essentially a storefront for your entire personal brand and can lead to so many opportunities, including speaking and being on a board and serving on a committee and who knows what else. So I was well situated to be able to do that because I was already laying the foundation for that. So thank you. So Mary, let's close out with you, your advice for folks and with words of wisdom.
Well, I'm going to echo what Christy said on listening. I think that, listen to your people and listen to the market and what they're telling you. And then not being afraid to act, but acting with intention. I think that sometimes when you do listen or read data like this, it can become overwhelming. And you think that, oh my gosh, there's so much in front of me, or so much in front of us that we have to change. The reality is many of the clients that I work with and our company works with have made great strides in changing, but it's about taking steps forward. So I think that not getting overwhelmed and identifying a change that is actionable, and just acting with intention on that, with your own, just starting with your own people, retaining your own people, and acting with intention.
I love that. That was a great way to end this program. So I'll say, professional development is really important. Webinars like this, obviously CLE programs you have to do, but attend things like this, and it does help to open our eyes to things going on in the industry, and even webinars outside of our industries do help as well. In-person networking is always a good thing too. Continue to network, even though, we're not as, we're both remote and we're both in person. So I want to thank Christy, Laura, and Mary for all of your insights. Please know that if you're registered for this program, and whether you attended today or you're watching the replay, you will get a copy of the white paper with Laura's research and a lot more. So we will be sending that to everybody in the next couple of weeks. Make sure you're on our mailing list. Please do link in with us and join us for the next webinar. I want to thank you all for spending the last hour and almost 30 minutes with us. And I hope you guys have a good summer. Thank you again, everyone, for joining us. Take care.
Thank you.
Thank you,
Thanks,
Stephanie.
ladies.
Bye.
Thank you both all so
Bye.
much.